It is your Thursday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day and hope you guys are all having a great day out there as well. A lot of really good stuff coming up on today's show. A first on daily delivery, a U.S. Senator is on the show today. Minnesota's Tina Smith will join me here in just a little while. Tina Smith has written a letter to Comcast's executives asking them, basically demanding that they get the Twins back on Comcast, back on Bally Sports North, get Bally Sports North back on the Comcast channels. Remember, Comcast dropped all of the Bally Sports channels a little over a month ago. Senator Smith has heard from a lot of her constituents. She is not happy. They are not happy. Everybody I hear from is saying the same thing, but she's got a little more power than I do. So having a chance to talk to her about this whole issue, what she thinks of it, and what she hopes to do about it was interesting to me. So listen for that a little bit later on in the show. And I'll have some expanded thoughts on how it's not just Comcast, obviously, that's part of this whole equation. It is the whole ecosystem of sports on TV. We've talked about it a lot, but kind of the swirl is bubbling up again right now with bankruptcy proceedings, with these leagues and teams saying, hey, we got to have an answer pretty soon. What is going to be the path forward? Things of that nature. NBA Finals start tonight. I'll have a couple thoughts on that, as well as a leftover Timberwolves thought that kind of is adjacent to the NBA Finals. Twins at the end of the show as well, where they belong. They lost again to the Yankees. Lynx here in a little bit. First, though, what did I miss? I want to start with a little Vikings and Justin Jefferson. Signed his massive extension earlier this week, met with the media, started mini camp on Tuesday. And I'm sure I'll talk a little bit more about this, but plenty of other Viking stuff, by the way, on Friday's show with Andrew Kramer from the Star Tribune. But just kind of listening back to Justin Jefferson's news conference after he signed that historic deal, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. 4 years, $140 million, $110 million of that guaranteed. Just thinking about his career arc, where he is right now, and the leadership role that he is now stepping into on this team. He's obviously always been a leader, especially last year, stepping into more of that role a year ago. But just kind of thinking about where he's at and how he came into the league. Remember, 2020 was his rookie season, his draft year. That was the COVID year, right? Like we tend to forget. We'd love to forget all of what that entailed, but no fans really in the stands, or certainly at US Bank Stadium. Kind of a weird entry into the league, but everybody watching on TV, watching him do great things as a rookie, but a weird kind of rookie season. 2021 was, another great year for him statistically, but the Vikings were kind of dysfunctional, ended up firing Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman after that season. 2022, of course, they jump into the forefront. They go, 13-4 in Kevin O'Connell's rookie season as head coach. And then 2023, Jefferson is hurt for almost half the year with that hamstring problem. And the Vikings have all sorts of quarterback health problems, things like that. And now this year, Kirk Cousins gone, departed to Atlanta. And that's the big one, right? That's the big leadership void right there, because Cousins, for whatever his on-field pluses and minuses were, you knew exactly what he was as a leader. And I think he grew even more comfortable in that role as time went on with the Vikings, especially under Kevin O'Connell. So now there is a leadership void, and not a leadership void, but you don't have that quarterback veteran presence as a starter right now. Jefferson probably feeling like he has to carry some of that next year, help mentor eventually a rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. I mean, right now, Sam Darnold, more of a veteran, will be the starter, but he's coming in new. He's not had the success in this league that Kirk Cousins has had. Justin Jefferson, certainly the most accomplished offensive player on this team, ready to be that leader. And he addressed that the other day when he talked to the media.
I've talked to JJ as soon as he got drafted. I told him confidence is key. Just coming into this league with confidence and being able to have that leadership just right off the bat, being a rookie. There's going to be people to come and help. Of course, I'm going to be that main person to be in this ear and try to teach him and try to prepare him for what we're about to go through. But I told him this league is tough. It's not a easy job to come out here and perform at the highest ability, especially as a rookie. But I definitely will be that main person that he can lean on and help throughout the way. It comes with just being the leader of the team. Of course, having Kirk was a little bit more easier. Him being a veteran and, me pretty much coming into the league with him as my quarterback, things are a lot easier. But, of course, things are not always going to be that type of way. There's things that's going to change, and you can't really look back on the past and dwell on that. So, of course, having JJ into the building, a new energy, a new soul. I love his confidence. I love his attitude. And, of course, him coming off a championship, you can't have any more confidence than that. So that confidence is going to continue to be with him. It's just my job to really install that into his brain throughout the whole entire season, and of course give him that extra confidence by throwing me the ball.
So again, Jefferson is obviously someone who wants to be great, who is driven by wanting to, be the best of all time, be a Hall of Famer, win Super Bowls, things like that, which is everything you would want, but he has not had to carry this much yet. So that'll be an interesting kind of piece of this season. It sounds like he wants that. It sounds like he is ready for that, but eventually mentoring someone like McCarthy, kind of bringing him along as a quarterback, developing that bond and that relationship, developing a new bond with Sam Darnold as long as he's the starter, things like that. Being a vocal leader, being the kind of guy who's going to get them ready in the right frame of mind without some of those other voices there. That's going to be the next step in his game, in addition to, being the same tremendous, Hall of Fame trajectory type of player that he's been early in his career. Interesting year, big year for Justin Jefferson. I don't doubt that he is up to the task, but it is a new task being put onto his plate. Lynx, meanwhile, have a lot of leaders on this year's team, and it is showing in the way they are playing on the court. Demolished Los Angeles last night, 86-62. They are 7-2 now. Best start to a season since 2017 when they started 9-0. 2017, by the way, their last WNBA title. See if they can match that. That's a big ask, especially with some of the super teams in the league, but they are growing into being one of the better teams in this league. The unselfishness that Kent Youngblood and I talked about on Wednesday's show really showing through right now. Another great game yesterday. Nafisa Collier had a great quote, I thought, by the way, kind of talking about how they're playing right now. She said, our team is really unselfish. It's giving up a good shot for a great one. And that is the key for sustainable offensive success, right? Like you can have a hot game where you take some good shots, lightly contested, good shots. But if you're passing those up safely and getting great shots, you are going to make those more often than those good shots. And the Lynx shot almost 50% last night, played great defense. Again, everybody kind of clicking from a chemistry perspective, which is so rare, especially for a team that has so many new players. 7-2, Cheryl Reeve, 307th win, second place now all time in the WNBA in terms of coaching victories. That's a new milestone for her last night as well. So everything clicking so far this year for the Lynx. The coaching has been great. The player acquisition has been great. Cheryl Reeve deserves a lot of credit for that, but the players themselves should take a lot of credit for it as well. Nafisa Collier setting the tone, of course. She had another great game last night, and like Kent and I talked about yesterday, such an underappreciated, still somehow star in this league. Not flashy all the time, but always getting it done, always making the right play, the embodiment of what this team is all about.
Very happy today to be joined by U.S. Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota. Tina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. It's great to be with you.
It's great to have you here. I wish it was on a happier subject, but it's the subject that you hear a lot about. I hear a lot about twins on TV. I understand you have written a letter to Comcast, essentially urging Comcast to put the twins back on the air for Twins fans. They're missing Bally Sports North. It's been over a month now. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear so much about this from my constituents, and I come from a big baseball family myself. And the springtime comes, and you are excited to watch the Twins, and you can't go to the games all the time. Most people can't. And so, watching the Twins on television is a fine part of Minnesota's summer tradition. And then to just not be able to have access to that is a huge blow. And I'm frustrated, I think, like a lot of Minnesota Twins fans, that these big giant companies can't figure it out and reach a conclusion to their negotiations so that people can watch the games. And every day that we miss is another game that we miss. And I think that's what's so frustrating to people. And so I've sent a letter to the chairman and CEO of Comcast Corporation, urging Comcast to promptly resolve this dispute, to get back to the negotiating table, and to do everything that they can to get this issue resolved so that Minnesota Twins fans can enjoy the summer.
I agree. I'm with you on that. And this is, like I said, this is something I hear about all the time from readers, listeners, things like that. And it hasn't been just Comcast, of course. It's been various carriers over the years, streaming services, other places, Dish Network, things like that, that have dropped these channels over the years, and fewer and fewer people having access to them. The Comcast was a big one. That is a big cable carrier in Minnesota, especially in the Twin Cities metro area. So I hear a lot more about that right now. What are some of the things you're hearing specifically from constituents? Is it just frustration? Is it venting? What are they telling you?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody just last week who was frustrated about this. She loves to watch the Twins. Come to find out, she tries to tune them in. They're not there. And so she's, complains to Comcast, where are the Twins? And she, gets sort of the rigmarole about contract disputes and so forth. Meanwhile, she can't watch them. And she said it almost felt like adding insult to injury to get this small credit back on her bill. Like I'm missing out on the opportunity to watch the games, and you're giving me $8 or $10 a month back. Well, I don't want the money. I want to be able to watch the games. And then to know that what's happening behind the scenes is that they're trying to get agreement to push the Twins games into a higher subscription rate. So then there's just more money out of the pockets of fans. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, these negotiations are always complicated. I've been involved in lots of big negotiations, but at the end of the day, Comcast is a $150 billion net worth company, and you'd think that they would be able to work this out without charging Minnesota fans and other, nickel and diming Minnesota fans.
I think Twins fans, other fans have been frustrated. Like I said, over the years, this has been kind of an erosion of the ability to watch games, or kind of like jumping from place to place, trying to figure out where you can watch them, things like that. Hopefully we're getting to a resolution point at somewhere down the line. But I do wonder, are you personally impacted by this? I know you're a Twins fan, but have you had your access to the games cut off too?
Well, I will tell you, I will be honest with you. My family recently changed from Comcast.
Of course they did.
To another provider.
Okay.
And we can watch the Twins on that provider, and we're saving money. And I'm not giving anybody any consumer advice. Everybody has to do what makes sense for them, and they know best what their own situation is. But that is a recent change that we made. And Archie and I we always have the Twins on when I'm home in Minnesota, and I will often try to figure out how to stream them when I'm here in Washington, if I'm back in my apartment here.
And for a while, people weren't missing them so much because they weren't doing so well this year. But in the middle of when this all happened, they were in the middle of their hot streak. Then they got cold again, but then they got hot again, and now they're playing the Yankees. So we'll see if people really miss it that much. But it's
games. If you don't watch the whole game,
right? It's okay.
Right?
It's okay. But
it's a long ball situation with baseball, right?
But it's frustrating. Like, I did the whole thing where I went to like streaming services a while ago, and like for a while, the one I went to had these channels, then it didn't. So I switched, then that one dropped it, then I switched again. It's like, I don't know where this is all headed. Do we need a congressional hearing to sort this all out?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, but I get what you're talking about. It seems like every season there's a new set of rules and a new kind of hoop that you have to figure out how to jump through, just as a fan and as a viewer. And I have a business background myself, and I understand that putting together these deals are complicated, and But I just don't think that that's any excuse for putting, to me, this should be, of course, this is in service of these businesses being able to make a dollar, but it also should be in service of the experience of the fans. And, whether you're a young parent who's like sitting there with your 2.5-year-old, like our son and daughter-in-law and our grandson Harlan, or whether you're, a senior who sits at home at night by yourself and your main activity is watching the game. And to me, that ought to be at the first of people's priorities.
Enjoying this conversation with Senator Tina Smith, U.S. Senator from Minnesota. A couple more things for you. I mean, this is not just a Minnesota issue, of course. Bally is on multiple channels across the country. This is Comcast issue is nationwide and in different places. Are you hearing from anybody else? Any folks that you work with in Congress and the Senate that this is something that other people are hearing about too in different markets?
Yeah, I am starting to hear some about sort of people's, frustration with this. And of course, hear a lot about big telecom companies that are often in kind of a monopoly position. And it seems like they're kind of the market makers rather than being in a competitive environment. And I know they don't see it that way, but that's the way it feels a lot of times to consumers who feel like they don't have a lot of choices. And of course, we also are realizing that we're worried about the baseball season right now, but I spent some of the happiest hours of my life and some of the saddest, but mostly happy watching the incredible Timberwolves. And it's not going to be too much longer before it's time for basketball and hockey again. And so I want to get this resolved before another team's season for viewers gets fouled up.
Well, that's a great point, because these leagues are, this whole bankruptcy process is happening right now. There's like a late July date now. It got pushed back. And, NHL and NBA are wondering like, hey, when are we going to know kind of what the plan is for next year? Because this, you're right, could impact the Timberwolves, could impact the Wild as this gets closer. Like these off seasons are very short, especially when you are the Wolves and you play into late May, which we're not used to.
I know. It was fabulous. It was fantastic, but that's true. And, it's complicated. As I've been saying, it's complicated to run these sports franchises, and you need to kind of have things figured out so that you can make other decisions about how you're going to allocate resources. So these contracts are important, and to get all the way to the beginning of a season and then find out that your games are blacked out for your biggest fans is a real problem.
I've been talking about this for a long time. You obviously have thousands of times more power than I do. Do you think that this sending this letter to Comcast or kind of starting this conversation, are you hopeful that there could be some sort of resolution that comes from this?
Well, listen, I just believe that, I don't have a magic wand here. I can't fix this problem by myself, but I do have the power of the bully pulpit, and I can talk about it with people and raise awareness of it and hope to put some public pressure on them so that they will get back to the negotiating table. They have got to come up with an agreement and a deal that works for them and allows them to provide the services that they need. But that's why I'm doing this. I think that the public pressure and the public attention, Lord knows they must be hearing a lot about this from their subscribers. Just call me another subscriber with a thanks to you with a good microphone.
Senator Smith, final thoughts. Anything else to add? Any hopes for the Twins this year? Any big picture thoughts on everything that we've talked about? Well,
I am the classic Minnesota sports fan. I am always hoping for the best and prepared for less than the best.
Yes.
And but this is an exciting team, and it's always fun to watch the game. I haven't been to a live game yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I've been a huge Twins fan for a long time. So wish them the best this season.
Sounds great. Well, I thank you so much for your time in this busy day. We'll see where this goes from here. Maybe we'll be talking at some point down the road about how this changed everything and turned everything around. You never know, right?
I hope so. We'll keep working on it. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye, Michael.
Thanks again to Senator Tina Smith for joining me on today's show. Interesting that she has hopped into the fray here on this, interesting subject that I've been talking about for so long. This podcast has been around for a little over 3 years now. I have a really interesting work milestone coming up tomorrow. Just noticed it's up on the screens, up on the things at the Star Tribune when I'm in the office. Tomorrow I have a few different work anniversaries, but tomorrow is the 25th anniversary of my official full-time, permanent hire date at the Star Tribune. 25 years. That sounds rather daunting to me, but it tells you how long I've been there, the longevity, things like that. But there's been so many issues over the years that we've covered, but this one stands out to me as something that people have really latched onto. This is such a fan issue. It's a fundamental thing to not have access, to not be able to watch your favorite teams play. And we've been covering this, like I said, for years and years, because it hasn't been just Comcast. It's been kind of this whole evolution of where sports on TV are. And you'd have those like little one-offs where like, this channel disappeared for a week, but now it's back. It was a negotiating ploy, things like that. This is different. This is channels disappearing for good from carriers. And for a long time it was a lot of these like new streaming services, right? Like a long time ago, I ditched cable and got, I think it was Sling was the first one that I started out with, the Sling TV. And they had what was then Fox Sports North. Then they dropped it. So I was like, oh, they don't have that anymore. I'm dropping that. Switch to something else. Then that dropped Fox Sports North, Bally Sports North. So you're kind of like hopping around for different things. And like now none of those streaming services that I used to have still have those channels. They're still on a couple of them, DirecTV Stream and Fubo, but they're not on most of the streaming services. They're not on Dish Network. It's like you're playing, like you're jumping around, going from thing to thing, and it's frustrating as a consumer, but it does feel like Comcast is different. That's probably why Senator Tina Smith is in the mix now. Hearing from a lot of constituents who are like, I've had Comcast forever, Comcast Xfinity forever. Like, what is going on here? Why do I not have access to watching the Twins? And, it's not just as simple as, well, then just change your provider. I know a lot of people have. It sounds like Senator Tina Smith has changed her provider, so she still has access to the games. You can get access, but you should not have to change your provider just to get the channel you want. We should be able to figure this out where the business model stabilizes, and hopefully we're going to get to that point soon. It just doesn't feel like it's getting there anywhere near the rate that anybody would want it to. Just the kind of this broken system where, more and more people are kind of ditching this model of, having all the channels. They want a la carte options, but they want, pricing that's fair, things like that. It's a time when there's so much uncertainty in TV, when there's so much, kind of options, but also how does everybody get paid? Greed certainly comes into this. Bad decisions on business certainly come into this. If we're talking about Diamond Sports and how much money was paid by Sinclair and Diamond Sports, the parent companies, 5 years ago to get all these regional sports networks, couldn't see all of this cord cutting coming, things like that. It's bigger, of course, than just this issue of Comcast right now. It's this bigger, much larger issue that has been kind of permeating the landscape for years and years. When a resolution comes, I'm not exactly sure when it's coming. We keep kind of pushing back dates. So we talked yesterday about how the bankruptcy hearing, kind of deciding how Diamond Sports is going to go forward. That got pushed back from, a couple weeks from now until the end of July. NBA, NHL are like, we got to know, guys, we got to know what channel, what distribution are we going to have for next year? Like those NBA and NHL games, those are going to start, 2-3 months after that deadline. They need to know kind of where they are at with all of that in order to be able to plan, in order to be able to have their business model figured out. So I just, I'm just kind of tired of this issue. I think consumers are tired of this issue. They just want to know, how can I watch the games? What is it going to cost me? And can I just leave it and forget it for years and years and not have to think, okay, how am I going to strategize and make a plan for watching the Twins or eventually the Timberwolves or Wild? They just want to know. They deserve to know. And maybe, just maybe, the pressure Tina Smith and some of other folks are going to put on them will eventually more quickly lead to an answer. Now, we joked during that last segment about how, hey, maybe right now you don't want to watch the Twins so much because they're playing the Yankees. We recorded that before Wednesday's game. We recorded that Wednesday afternoon, a few hours before the Twins played the Yankees. It was just kind of a hunch of mine that maybe, just maybe, the Twins were going to lose again. It's a bad feeling, right? Like, the Twins are a good team. At least their record suggests they are a good team. They've been hot and cold. I know that this year, cold, hot, these kind of stretches they've been in. But, they're above 500. They're on pace to win mid to upper 80s worth of, of wins this season. They are a team that you should expect to have a good chance to win every night. Now, the Yankees are great this year. They're a juggernaut this year. I get that. It's in Yankee Stadium. The Twins got swept by the Yankees at Target Field. They lost the first game of the series, but still, you shouldn't go into every game thinking Twins are going to lose. That said, the history's not great. This year's history is not great. We've talked about how, in the last 162 games, this was a few games ago, but in the last 162 games, a full season, including playoffs and regular season, the Twins were 44-118 against the Yankees. Yankees, basically on a historic pace just against the Twins. So that is a backdrop. Had a hunch that the Twins might lose Wednesday, and indeed they did 9-5. I don't think they had a hit until the 6th inning. Royce Lewis homers again. They get some offense late to make the final score look a little bit better, but the Yankees got off to a huge lead again. Chris Paddock gets roughed up. It's just not a fair fight right now with the Twins against the Yankees, and it doesn't feel like it should be that way, right? That was the breakthrough last year that the Twins made, that you thought they made. Hey, they are good enough to compete with pretty much anybody. I think that's how they felt about themselves. That's the confidence they had when they won a playoff series last year. That's the confidence they got from competing with some of the best teams last year and going toe-to-toe and kind of building up better pitching, power bats, things like that. The starting pitching just isn't quite as deep this year, isn't quite as great as it was a year ago. That's a big part of this. When they run into the good teams, the starting pitching stalls out, the offense stalls out, and it really shows the difference right now between the Twins and the 4 or 5 best teams in the league. So we will see if it will be any different against the Yankees today. I am not holding my breath, but we will see. And yeah, I was just kind of guessing that they were going to lose that game, and in fact, they did. Let us finish with the cooler NBA Finals start tonight. Could have been the Wolves. It was close. It was close and it wasn't close, right? They were in the Western Conference Finals. They were favored to win the Western Conference Finals. We forget that. As much as Dallas took it to the Wolves at the start of that series, the Wolves were the favorites to win the Western Conference, to go to the NBA Finals. They did not, of course, lost in 5 games, lost the first 3, including the first 2 at home. 3 really close games, then they pulled one out, another close game, then they got blown out in Game 5. Dallas in the finals now at Boston. Dallas, a pretty big underdog in this first game, in this whole series. Kind of shows you the opportunity missed by the Wolves. If Dallas played really well in that series, they were a bad matchup against the Wolves, for the Wolves, but that opportunity was there. The Wolves were playing the 5 seed. They really could have done more in that series. Now, we'll see how this series goes. We'll see if the odds makers and everything are proven right and that Boston is just the better team and that the Wolves really did miss an opportunity, or if Dallas is just one of those juggernauts that has caught fire at the right time and is hard to beat right now. So it's an interesting finals, lots of subplots. Kyrie Irving going against his old team, Porzingis for Boston. He was in Dallas for a while. How these teams are stacking up right now, the veteran leadership, things like that. It should be a great series, but also a reminder of how close the Wolves were, and something I wrote about yesterday, how close the Wolves are and what they do to get to that next level. Do they run it back with the same roster and try to just kind of build on that success, believe that, the step they took this year can lead to bigger steps next year? Or do they make bigger moves this offseason, recognizing what their shortcomings are, recognizing how this can be sustainable in the future in terms of salary, things like that? It's a fascinating, interesting offseason. I don't know exactly what the answer is. I have a feeling that there's not going to be major moves. Just kind of knowing Tim Connolly, knowing, hey, they've not had a lot of success in their history. You do not go into an offseason after you've had your best year in 20 years, after you've had your second conference finals appearance in franchise history, and make major moves. But then again, we've seen Connolly roll the dice, shake things up before in terms of bringing in Rudy Gobert, making major moves when we didn't see one coming. So I don't know exactly what the offseason has in store. I just know that sometimes you do have to make that next move. You can't just stand still and expect the same results or better results just because of a year of, hey, we got this, we got this experience, we got this kind of roster that did really well this year. That does not guarantee you anything for the future. So I don't know, interesting offseason to me, and it'd be interesting to watch these NBA finals and kind of wonder, okay, how might the Wolves have fared differently in this series against Boston, and what do they need to do going forward to get to this level? That will do it for me today. Like I said, more Vikings talk on tomorrow's show, expected with Andrew Kramer. Plenty of stuff next week as well. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow.